Hello, how are you doing? My name is Otto and welcome to the channel. A few days ago, I got this camera. It is the new Sony ZV-E10 and there are lots of things to like about this camera, except maybe the name. Today, I want to compare it with this other camera. It is the DJI Pocket 2, which I have been using for many months now. The DJI Pocket 2 is this small device that has a small camera on a 3-axis gimbal, and on the handle we have a joystick to control the gimbal or to zoom in and out, and we also have a record button and a few other buttons to change a few settings. The Sony ZV-E10 is more like a traditional camera with more physical buttons where most of them are customizable. This camera has an aps-c sensor which is bigger than the one on the Pocket 2, and the lenses are interchangeable, which means that you can buy different lenses for this camera, and eventually if you buy another Sony E-mount camera, those lenses are going to work on that new camera. Even though this feels like a regular camera with all kinds of settings even for advanced users, Sony made sure that this camera would be easy to use by beginners. If we take a look at the top of the camera, there is a straightforward button to change to photo mode, video mode, or S&Q, which stands for slow and quick, and this is going to be for slow motion or time-lapse video mode. Over here we have a zoom in and out lever, a big record button, and we also get easy access to two special features that this camera has. One of them is the automatic background defocus. Just by pressing a button once, the camera will adjust to have a smooth blur on the background. The other feature is the product showcase, which is excellent for any kind of video where you are talking about a product and you want to show it to the camera. With this feature on, the camera is going to switch the focus to the product without having to cover your face and then back to you when you're not showing the product. This is a feature that not even my main camera has, and I think that it's really useful if you're doing this kind of videos. In terms of weight and size, the advantage goes to the Pocket 2, which has a weight of 117 grams, while the Sony with a kit lens weighs 460 grams. The Pocket 2 can fit in your pocket and you're barely going to feel that it's there, and most of the time, people won't even notice that I'm filming unless I get really close. If you want to be more discreet when making videos, the Pocket 2 could be the one for you. Being small gives the Pocket 2 a big disadvantage, and that is the screen size that it has, which is quite small, especially comparing it to the Sony camera. Looking at what you're shooting is not quite pleasing, but at least it will give you an idea of what you have on the frame. The touchscreen is quite responsive and the menus are easy to navigate. The Sony camera has a 3-inch touchscreen that can be flipped, and this is useful for vlogging or to use as a YouTube studio camera. The touchscreen can only be used to start focus tracking, to focus, or to take a picture, but it doesn't work for the menus, and this is kinda disappointing. I like that there is a red frame all around the screen that turns on to let you know that the camera is recording, as well as a tally light in front of the camera. Battery life when recording video is about 80 minutes on the Sony versus around 120 minutes on the Pocket 2. The downside of the Pocket 2 is that the battery is not replaceable. For the Sony camera, you can buy spare batteries. It uses the NP-FW50 and the retail price is around $60. Now the good news is that you can use a power bank on both cameras and use them at the same time. The Pocket 2 and the Sony camera have pretty good internal microphones. Sony has a 3-capsule microphone which has a pretty decent audio quality, and there is a dead cat included with the camera for wind noise reduction. This is a microphone test using the internal microphone on the Sony camera. The Pocket 2, on the other hand, has 4 internal microphones on the handle. It doesn't come with a dead cat, but the audio is really good as well. This is a microphone test using the internal microphone on the Pocket 2. You can use external microphones with these two devices. With the Pocket 2, you will need the Do-It-All handle, which comes with the Creator Combo, or you can buy it for around $100. The Sony ZV-E10 has a microphone jack where you can plug just about any microphone, like this one over here, which is not expensive and it's a really good microphone. This is a microphone test using an external microphone. There's also a wide selection of microphones from Sony that uses their multi-interface tube, where you don't even need to plug them on the microphone jack, so less cables, less complications. And just before I jump to the next topic, this Sony camera also have a headphone jack here on the left side. The DJI Pocket 2 has a smaller camera sensor than the Sony ZV-E10, which has an APS sensor, and a bigger sensor will translate to better image quality, improved low light performance, and more background blur. This doesn't mean that the Pocket 2's video quality is bad, and as a matter of fact, for such a tiny device, I've been quite happy at the results. But after comparing different clips side by side, you can tell that the Sony video looks better. And it also seems that Sony has improved their color science with their newest camera generations. One of the biggest advantages of this Sony camera is that this is a hybrid camera. It's going to be good for videos, but you can also take very good pictures with this camera. And I have to admit that I never used the Pocket 2 to take pictures. I mean, they're not bad, but if I don't have my regular camera with me, I do prefer to just use my smartphone for pictures. The Sony ZV-E10 has face and eye autofocus, and this is one of the best autofocus that the market has to offer. The autofocus works very well for pictures and for videos, even if you're shooting at 4K. With the Pocket 2, you can activate subject tracking, and it comes very handy in many situations where you want the camera to follow your subject, and this is a feature that I personally use quite often. Now let's talk about video resolution. The Pocket 2 can shoot at 4K and 2.7K up to 60 frames per second. 60 frames per second is great, especially if you're going to slow it down in post for a nice slow motion. The Sony camera can shoot 4K at 24 or 30 frames per second. At 30 frames per second, there is going to be some crop, and this camera doesn't have 60 frames per second at 4K. Now, the Sony can shoot at 60 or 100 frames per second, but it's going to be at 1080p, which is going to be fine, but the quality is nowhere near as the 4K that it has. The Sony camera doesn't have in-body stabilization, but it has an electronic stabilization. It can be set to off, standard, or active. Active is the strongest one, but it comes with a big crop factor of 1.44. Standard is not as good as active, but it doesn't have the crop factor. In my opinion, the stabilization is not as good as I thought it would be, but it's better than not having it at all. You can also buy a regular gimbal for this Sony camera, but then your setup is going to be heavier, bigger, and more expensive. The Pocket 2, as I said before, has a mechanical gimbal, and I feel that this does a great job doing what it's supposed to do without compromising its size. I mean, look at this tiny gimbal right here and compare it to this full-size gimbal over here. Last but not least, two quick things about these two cameras. The Sony can be used as a webcam if you connect it to your computer. It's really easy to set up, and the DJI Pocket 2 cannot be used as a webcam. And the Sony has different flat color profiles versus one on the DJI Pocket 2. The Sony ZV-E10 is a great entry-level camera that is well balanced for videos and photos. And with this camera, it's going to be easier to grow in the future as a content creator. This is, in my opinion, a camera for anyone doing YouTube videos, vlogging, social media, or people who like to travel. The Pocket 2 is easy to use, and I really like the quality that it has to offer in such a tiny device. I wouldn't pick this for a YouTube studio, but for vlogging, general videos, and traveling, it's going to be great. I'll put the links down in the description below so you can check them out. Please give me a like if you got some value out of this video. I hope you have an amazing day, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.